Hey, so we are back with a brand new movie on If Naruto Was Discontent, the Power of Winter with Fem Friends movie, but before we start, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin the story. And I am telling you that you will never be anything other than a stuck-up whiny girl. A 5-year shouted into the face of another child, no older than the shouting child. The child that was yelling was a spiky blonde-haired boy with odd birthmarks on both his cheeks. The birthmarks were 3 lines on each cheeks, making it seem as though he had whiskers on his face. And finally, a bright pair of blue eyes with a tan skin on his average height for a 5-year-old. His name is Naruto Uzumaki, a normal human boy with a orange-themed clothing, as he wore an orange shirt with black pants, and he just so happened he was arguing with another person. The girl he was arguing with was a small girl just slightly shorter than he was. She had long white hair tied into pigtails and a delicate face for a young girl. Her skin was flawless pale white, but not due for lack of sunlight, but more on the genetic side. And just like the boy, she had a pair of light blue eyes. She had a white color-themed clothing to her. With a white sundress. Her name is Winter Schnee, the heiress to the Schnee Dust Company. And currently her eyes were narrowed at the blonde in front of her. From the moment the two young children had met, which was nothing more than 10 minutes ago, it has been nothing but fighting between the two. This was the first day of school for both children. All it took was a comment made by Winter about the blonde's whisker to set off a shouting contest between the two. At least I know I will never be beat by a cat. The small Schnee was not going to back down from this fight against the blonde. She was not going to let Naruto win this fight against her. She wanted to win, damn it. These are birthmarks. The young boy shouted back at the white-haired girl. He didn't care who she was, no one makes fun of his birthmarks and walks away. He had to teach her a lesson. The young lady eyes narrow at the blonde. She opened her mouth to make another comeback. That's enough, you two. A female voice cut the two off. The two children turned their attention towards the sound of the voice and saw that a young woman was walking towards them. She stopped in front of them and grabbed them both by their wrist. You two have to be nice to each other. She lectured the two. The two both gained red blush on their faces as they were embarrassed about their fighting. But they both turned their attention back to each and glared at each other. This was not going to be the last time they fought against each. Naruto and Winter, age 13. A young preteen was walking down the hallways of his school to his locker. Headphones in his ears, he walked past everyone, giving them a wave here and there as he reached his locker. Quickly putting his coat in, he opened his locker to get his books for his afternoon class. He failed to notice that someone was calling his name. Uzumaki. He finally heard the voice. As someone took his headphones out of his ears. Snapping back to see who was rude enough to pull his headphones off, he came to see that he was looking at Winter Schnee. A hand resting on her hip as she glared at him. His eyes narrowed at the lady in front of him, but he didn't want to go off on her yet. Happy to see that you finally can hear me, Uzumaki. What do you want, Winter? Naruto asked her, a little annoyed with her actions. Even after 8 years of knowing each other, they were still enemies to one another. And for whatever reason, they have still ended up in the same class every year since meeting each other. I am only here to ask you if you have finished your part of the project for our next class. I will not fail because you choose not to do your share of the work. She knew how to rub him the wrong way since they first met, and still nothing has changed about that. Rolling his eyes at her question, he turned his attention back to his locker. Yeah, I finished my share. Grabbing one of the textbooks needed, something came to mind. Did you finish your share? I haven't seen you in class for the past week. While he was not a friend of the blue-eyed lady, he did notice the lack of annoyance. Of course I did. Closing both her eyes, she put both her hands on her hips. I am a Schnee. A Schnee will always do their fair share of work. Naruto sweat dropped at her pride of her family name. He couldn't believe how fast this became a thing about her family name. Still doesn't explain why you missed class for a week. Did you finally decided to stop being a goody two-shoes and ditch class? Naruto mumbled the last part under his breath. But Winter had heard his comment. For your information, I did not ditch classes last week. Only someone of your standard would do that. Naruto's anger was on the raise. He couldn't believe that she took a shot at him. It was taking all of his self-control not to start yelling at her. I only missed classes cause my grandfather passed away. With that, Naruto's anger lowered. Are you okay? Well, not a friend of hers, he wasn't heartless. Her eyebrow rose up at how odd it sounded hearing him ask her about her state of mind. But she couldn't deny that she was touched that he did ask. He passed away due to his age. The only comfort is that he died in his sleep, but it still hurts knowing he passed away. She told him, a small frown on her face. Father is going to take over the company now. I'm not sure if that's a good thing with him in charge. While she was proud of her family, her father's actions were more than questionable. That was something she would never say out loud, but she knew to keep her mouth shut around her father. Sorry to hear about your grandfather. Naruto grabbed another item from his locker and closed the door. But isn't your father always in the news about his actions towards Francis? Winter frowned deepened at his question. It was true, but it was not a topic she felt that she could talk about. Naruto was able to read her body language and knew to stop the conversation. Well, here's something to help you out. Naruto handed her a small box that had the words Porky written on it. Not wanting to be rude, Winter took the small gift from the blonde and looked at the box wondering what it was. It's a snack. It's really good and I'm giving it to you as a pick-me-up before our next class. Naruto told her, not sure how to explain his actions. Winter nodded her head. Rubbing the back of his head with his right hand, the blonde gave her a small wave before taking off. Winter stared at the box for a moment before opening it and taking out the snack out to taste it. Taking a small bite, she tasted the new snack. A smile formed on her face as she enjoyed the tasty snack. Naruto and Winter, age 17. Naruto, now standing at 6 feet, was dressed in his battle gear, which had combat black pants with an orange belt tied around his waist, with a heavy padded long-sleeve orange shirt, and his weapon, which was a pair of dual-ranged shot gauntlets that reached all the way to his elbows, and finally a normal combat knife that was straight to his right leg. The blonde was currently looking for a partner in the Emerald Forest. Even though he had come from Atlas, he decided that he needed a change of pace and applied for Beacon Academy. And for whatever reason, the headmaster of the school decided that they would get their partners after being thrown into the Grim-infested forest. So far he had come across a few Grim on his search, but he made quick work of them. Now he heard some rustle in the bush not far from him. Deciding at that moment to check out the sound, he ran towards the bush. Only for a black claw to attempted to slash him. Naruto was able to quickly dodge the blow and take a few steps back to await his attacker. Out of the bush came out a Grim known as a Beowulf. Beowulfs resemble the traditional bipedal forms of lycanthropes, more commonly known as werewolves. They stand on their hind legs, albeit with a slouch, and are extremely muscular. They have pitch black fur and red eyes. Their heads also appear to be made out of bone and display skull-like features. They appear to have protrusions made of bone along their back and arms. And on a final note, they were considered the lowest of the low when it comes to Grim. Seeing that the creature was in a small pack of 3, the blonde knew it would be easy to defeat them without much effort. Quickly getting into a battle stance and getting his weapon, Iron no High, ready, he brought his fist out to start striking. Just as his fist was about to make contact, the Beowulf head was blown away by another force. Jumping back, he quickly started to look around his surrounding to see who had done the deed. Boom boom. 2 more shots were fired and the remaining Grim went down. And still Naruto had yet to see who the mysterious attacker was. The unknown person jumped out of their location and landed next to Naruto. The blonde looked to his side and noticed that his savior had white hair tied into a bun. One side of her face was covered by the bang of her hair, with a small strand falling behind her left ear. He noticed that the person was a female and was average height. Dressed in all white with silver gloves and boots, and finally a blue top. Naruto knew who the person was the moment he saw her eyes. The same pair of light blue eyes stared back into bright blue eyes. Looks like we're partners, Winter. Naruto grinned when he saw a light pout appear on her face. While surprised at seeing a former classmate and more surprised that a heiress of a Atlas company was attending a Veil school. Let's go, Naruto. I will not fail this test only because you decided to fight against all the Grim in the forest. Yup, spoken like a true heiress. Naruto lauded her statement but knew that was her way of saying she could have done worse. Naruto and Winter 6 months into being a team. So if one of us can beat your champion in wrestling, we're allowed to leave your village? Naruto asked, as he and the rest of his team were stuck behind bars. Long story short, mistakes were made and someone knocked over a village treasure and the entire team were thrown into jail until a punishment was decided. The old man nodded his head. Since we're old-fashioned, one of you must fight in the nude. That was a bombshell. While the team were confident in their hand-to-hand skills, fighting in the nude was a different story. Why? The other male of the team asked. The male was known as Kiba Inuzuka and at times was just as wilded as Naruto was. Dressed in a black open coat with a black shirt under his coat and on his hands were a pair of black fingerless gloves. He is wearing grey pants reaching his calves and sandals. Unlike Winter and Naruto, he was a half Faunus. Someone could tell that by just looking at him, with his messy brown hair, sharp black eyes with vertical slit-like pupils, pronounced canine teeth and nails that he can change into claws. He also has the distinctive red fang markings of the Inuzuka clan on his cheeks. We followed an old tradition. The only way to decide it to who is the strongest in our village is a test of strength, and we have followed these since our village was formed. If someone is covering themselves, they could hide weapons or items that enhance their bodies. That is why we fight in the buff. Looks like the test is all you guys. Kiba partner told the 2 males. Her name was Rain Shika and just like Kiba, she too was a Faunus. She was a reindeer Faunus. She had a small pair of antlers on her head that were slightly covered by her long black hair. A pair of honey brown eyes donned her round face with her small nose. She was a little bit on the small size, standing at 5'1" even with the antlers adding to her height. Dressed in a dark blue combat dress with black heels. She had a decent bust on her small size. Not a big on her small frame but not small either. "Why can't you two help in this?" Naruto asked the two, not sure why the females of the group couldn't join in the fight. Naruto felt the room temperature dropped as both the ladies glared daggers into him. "As a heiress, I refuse to allow any scandalous stories of me fighting in the nude ever be known." Winter turned her head to the side. She was angry that the blonde would ever ask as to why a female didn't want to fight in the buff. "I want to watch the show." Rain simply told them. While she was angry at Naruto for suggesting for her to fight in the nude, she wasn't going to allow her team see her goods. She was not that kind of girl. "So if they're not going to fight. You are." Kiba quickly told the whisker blonde. Wait, why me? You owe for last time." Naruto nodded his head. A few weeks ago he did have to use Kiba to pull off a prank. Not his fault the person deserved it. He kept messing with Rain and tried to even told her she should have been skipping instead of walking. After that the blonde needed Kiba help to lay out the trap. "Hold my boxers." Naruto quickly was stripping out of his clothing. Naruto was not ashamed of his body. He didn't care that he had to fight another guy in the nude. He just wanted to get out of jail as soon as possible. If he had to beat a guy in the nude to do so then he would do so. Plus he now had a funny story to tell for the future. "Are you naturally bald down there?" Rain asked as she stared at her naked teammate. While she was not attracted to her fellow teammate, that didn't mean that she couldn't check out the blonde. And as a woman that let her eye wander down for a second or two, she couldn't deny that she didn't enjoy the free show. Yeah, Naruto didn't care that he was naked in front of the girls. Hell, he was going to fight in front of an entire village. There was no time for him to become embarrassed at this given point. "I will not look," Winter said as she turned her back towards the other direction. She did hope that her teammates didn't see the blush on her face, nor that she did take a glance at the blonde mini-me. But one of her teammates did notice her gaze on the blonde's nude form. "You know he is hung down there." A voice whispered to the white-haired heiress. Winter told her head to the side to see that Rain was the one that had spoken. And that piece of information only made Winter's face grow even redder. "How would you know?" she harshly whispered back. She did not want to have this kind of conversation, but knew that when it came to Rain, she'd better do it now or with Rain in public for making her wait. Internet, books and having a older sister that had a size queen. Winter blush intensified her teammate's blunt response. Winter shook her head at the mental images. And used all of her self-restraint to not look at the blonde again. "I thought you said you like your partner. Why are you giving up a perfect chance to check him out?" "I told you that in secret." "You still haven't answered the question." Because Winter pouted a bit before opening her mouth to finish speaking. It's unbecoming of a proper lady. While she did want to check out the free show, she was raised with morals and a higher standard of living. Well, proper of not, he's going to be fighting in the nude. Maybe if you get that stick out of you and act like a girl your age you might have wrap around your finger by now. Rain saw a look of conflicted on the blue-eye face. She just needed to push a button or two to get a juicy show. If you showed him the goods he would fall for your charms in that moment. The goods? Winter was not sure of what that expression meant. Was she talking about her family dust company? Or a secret collection of hers? Not that she had one or anything embarrassing like that. But going back to the question. Or by the goods did she mean be dressed in a model dress? What did Rain mean by showing the goods? Flash him your tits and he will be yours right then and there. Rain smirked as she saw all the blood rush to the pale woman's face. She didn't even flinch when Winter glared bloodly death at her. She could only laugh silently as the heiress fought with herself. Naruto and Winter aged 23rd year. Why is this paper so hard to write? Winter screamed to herself as she stared at the blank piece of paper in front of her. Her class was assigned to write the reason as to why they choose to become hunters and huntress. And for the entire day the heiress found herself unable to answer the question. The only answer her mind could come up with is to protect the people, but she felt that is what a hunter is, not the reasoning as to why she chose this path. "You're still struggling with that," a voice said from behind her. She turned around and saw that it was her crush walking into the dorm. She was happy to see him, but right now more upset that she couldn't find her answer. Stuff like this came naturally to her but not this time. Even though they became even more friendly as the years went by, she still had a crush on her blonde teammate but had yet to make a move on the blonde. She didn't deny that she was happy that he was still single, but that also made her feel horrible to be happy that he hasn't found love yet. "Why is this assignment hard? I asked some of the teachers as to why they became hunters, but I still couldn't figure out why I became one." Winter told him as she span around in her chair to face the blonde. Naruto took a seat across from her to see that she was truly struggling with a simple assignment. "Who did you ask?" Well, I asked the new headmaster new assistant, Ms. Goodwitch, as to why she became a huntress. Naruto placed his finger on his chin trying to remember who she was talking about. Then suddenly it clicked in his mind on who she was talking about. Oh, the new teacher with the writing chop. She is pretty strict about the rules. Naruto said, remembering how he was talked to about one of his pranks from the new assistant. That's the woman. Winter nodded her head as his statement. Well, she became a huntress to try and make sure that children wouldn't be afraid anymore. She hopes one day to see the grim come to an end so that there wouldn't be no more fighting. That's noble of her. Naruto could see that being a reason to fight Agasan the Grim. Why did she pick a teaching job then? It seemed odd to the blonde that someone who wanted to end fighting wouldn't be on the front lines. Well, she said she had an accident with a Grim. A beetle got the jump on her and was able to pierce her body. She survived the attack, but the attack left her uterus damage. It hurts her knowing that she is unable to have children. Oh, so she became a teacher to feel like that the students are her children. That would explain why she seems like a mother hen at times. Naruto mumbled the last part to himself. Why he did feel sad that she lost a great natural gift of childbirth. He knew that she wasn't the first to have these kind of accidents and she wouldn't be the last. Yeah, she did. Winter knew that she needed to hear more people's reasoning. So why did you become a hunter? For as long as she knew the blonde, not once did he ever mention why he became a hunter. Oh, that's easy, I want people to acknowledge me. Naruto told Winter with a bright smile on his face. Winter eyes narrowed at the blonde, his reasoning seemed a little selfish on his part. Can you explain? She didn't want to judge him, but she wanted to know what he truly meant. I lost my parents when I was real young. The only thing I knew about them is that they were powerful hunters. Growing up I had people hate me due to my appearance. People thought I was a faunus cause of my whiskers, while faunus thought I was mocking them with my whiskers. Because of my birthmarks people thought I wouldn't amount to anything and I would just become a nobody. I choose to become a hunter to show everyone that I am a somebody. Winter was silent. In her early years she was one of those people that thought very little of Naruto when they were kids. Since he was one of those kids that always did pranks and slack off in class, she thought he was a waste of space. It didn't help that being raised by her father meant she heard him badmouth every faunus that crossed his path. She remembered he once badmouthed Naruto when they were kids just because of his birthmarks. Looking back at it she now felt horrible at her past actions. Naruto. Yeah? I'm sorry. She knew that nothing she could say would change her past actions, but she still felt that she needed to make amends for her past actions. She felt a hand on her shoulder and looked up to see the smiling face of her blonde crush. It's in the past, Winter, there's nothing to worry about it now. We are friends now and that's all that matters. Winter could only smile back at the blonde and how big his heart was. If everyone in the past knew how big his heart was they would never have treated him like they did in the past. Later that night she was finally able to finish her paper. She wrote down that she became a hunter to change how people felt about one another. That they wouldn't judge anyone anymore due to their outside appearance. And to become a person that could stand by Naruto's side as they grow older. She never wrote down the last part on her paper only cause she had felt that it was too personal and a selfish reason on her part. Naruto and Winter age 21 graduation dance 4th year. The final dance was here for the 4th year students and that meant everyone was trying to make this dance the big blowout before they went out to the world on their own. For people to make final decision before they finish the school year or confess any feelings for others before they wouldn't be able to see them anymore. Why I have this dance? Naruto asked Winter, seeing that the heiress was sitting all by herself at this big dance. Naruto wouldn't say it out loud, but his eyes were glued on Winter for the whole night. She had a pure white dress that complemented her body and her hair perfectly. He was also secretly happy that the dress was backless and he saw that she did not wear a bra. Winter smiled and took his hand and quickly led him to the dance floor. Only for the music to change from a fast beat song to a slow dance. Which could only mean that she now had to press herself very closely to the blonde. Wrapping her arms around his neck she started to slow dance with him. She knew this might be the last time that she would be able to dance with the blonde. And after all this time she still hasn't confessed to him about her feelings. But using Rain's suggestion she decided to be bold for tonight. She went all out and was going to make the blonde hers. Naruto, her heartbeat was going 1,000 miles an hour. This was the moment she was going to lay it all out for him. Time to sink or swim. I'm happy that I became your partner, Winter. Naruto had cut her off unintentionally. He felt this was the best time to tell her something from his heart. I'm happy that I got to know you, Winter. I wouldn't change this friendship for anything in the world. Winter eyes widened. While it was nice hearing the kind words coming from his mouth, she felt that it was his way of saying he only saw her as a friend. I'm happy that I got to become your friend to Naruto. She felt heartbroken that she was unable to actually say what she wanted. She didn't want to ruin the night because of her feelings. She would rather be in his arms and enjoying the night than ruining it by confessing her feelings and being shot down. A few hours into the night Naruto was being helped back to his dorm by his teammate Winter. While he knew Kiba was going to spike the drinks for the dance, he didn't think that it was going to affect him as much. Normally the blonde had a high tolerance towards alcohol, he drank way too much for a normal person. Winter, being the lady she was, did not drink the punch, but that knew that she needed to help her teammate out. "Hey, you're a very pretty woman." Naruto slurred his words out as his mind was long gone by this point. Winter smiled at his compliment but knew it was the alcohol speaking. She was able to get him through their doors and closed the door behind her. She noticed the train and Kiba had yet to come back, meaning that they might be spending their night with their dates. She went and grabbed him some water to keep him hydrated. The moment she came back and handed the glass of water to him, he grabbed her by her wrist and brought her down on top of him. The water spilled on the floor, but the two didn't notice it. "You're really pretty, Winter." Naruto slurred out as he tried to focus, but the world kept spinning all around him. "You're drunk, Naruto." She simply told him, knowing that any words that came out of his mouth were not of his own. By tomorrow he would forget his actions and gone back to the normal life they had. No, I am not. I always thought you were pretty since we were kids." Naruto was able to wheeze out. Winter patted him on the cheek and gave him a quick thanks and tried to sat back up, but the blonde wouldn't have any of that. He kept her pinned on top of him. "You should stay in my bed tonight." Winter opened her mouth to tell him everything wrong with what he was saying, but the moment she had opened her mouth the blonde lips came crashing down on hers. It took her a moment to realize what was going on and another to figure out to push away from him. Her face a bright chrisman, it was her first kiss and with her crush no less. She was happy that it was him that had done the deed, but her heart knew that it still meant nothing. "We should stop." She knew that if she allowed this drunk Naruto to continue, they would both end destroying their friendship and be left with nothing but regrets. But her partner didn't seem to listen as he went back to kissing the white-haired heiress. But that last kiss something in Winter snapped. She knew this might be the last chance that she could be with her blonde-haired partner. While he might not be able to remember what happens tonight, that didn't mean that she wouldn't. She wanted to be selfish and finally let her desires take her. Throwing all caution to the wind, she allowed her lust to take control of her. This was the night that Winter was never going to forget for the rest of her life. Naruto and Winter weeks after graduation dance. "After all this time you spent here, you decided that you are not going to stay a huntress?" Naruto asked as he waited for his white-haired partner Ride to come and pick her up. It was only a day after their graduation and all the fourth-year students were taking off one by one. Rain and Kiba had already left and that only left the two. "I just feel that I could do better at my family company than I would on the battlefield," Winter calmly told him as she sat next to him enjoying what could be their last moments together. "That sucks. You were really good with your sword," Naruto complained as he saw a limo started to pull up. Winter shrugged her shoulders, knowing that people could have a change of heart on what they want to do with their life. "Thank you." She didn't have to wait long as the limo pulled up in front of her. She knew that was her signal to leave. Both stood up, knowing that this was the moment the two were both going to finally part ways. "Naruto, if you ever decided that the life of a hunter is not something you want anymore, you are more than welcome to work at the Schnee Dust Company. I will make sure that you are treated well." Naruto lauded her sentence. He went and gave her a hug, knowing that this was the perfect moment to say goodbye to her. "You know I will never stop being a hunter, Winter." He released her from her hug and watched as she took a step towards her limo. She turned her attention back to the blonde and gave him a warm smile. "I knew you were going to say that. And that is why I respect you, Naruto. You are a person that will always help those in need and nothing I can say will ever change. And I hope you never change. I hope you stay the same kind person that you always are." Naruto Uzumaki, you are one of the few people who I respect. While she might not have been able to tell him about her feelings, she could at least tell him about her respect for the blonde. Naruto smiled. "Same goes to you, Winter Schnee." He gave her the brightest smile he could muster out. Winter stared at the blonde for a few moments before finally making her way to her limo and setting off to her next adventure. As the vehicle left the school grounds, she couldn't stop her smile, knowing that Naruto she was finally able to get some of her feelings for the blonde off her chest. She felt a little angry at herself that she was unable to ever tell the blonde her entire true feelings for him, but this was good enough for her. "This Schnee, is that the boy?" her driver asked her. "Yes, he is." "Does he know that you're carrying his childhood?" "No, and I don't think I will ever tell him." Winter was sure of that. "May I ask why?" "When his legend is written I don't want it to be trainish. I don't want the legend to say that one of the kindest person to have lived also father a childhood with a woman who family spent years trying to oppress the faunus. It's better if the legend says only his great deeds." In recent news, the Schnee Dust Company has yet to deny nor confirm the recent rumors of Winter Schnee pregnancy. While many rumors have always come forth about the Schnee Dust Company, this has become the hot topic about the company. Which Schnee, the father of Winter Schnee, has yet to comment on the rumors, even after the news came out and his company taking a hit in their stock prices. The news kept talking about the recent rumors. The one watching the news decided it was time for him to turn off his TV. The blonde, who was known as Naruto Uzumaki to his friends, could only sigh and rubbed his temples at the way the news was attacking the Schnee Dust Company. While he knew the media looked for any reason to attack someone, even big companies like Schnee Dust Company, he felt that it wasn't news. More like gossip. They all wanted to know, but were simply being denied the news they wanted to hear. Getting out of his chair, he walked to his kitchen to start making his dinner. Naruto quickly decided it was time for ramen. And within moments his food was but finished, all he had to do was wait for it to finish cooking. Now that he had nothing left to distract him from his thoughts, his mind went back to Winter. And with that came a huge problem for the blonde. For the blonde, he had nothing but mixed feelings for the heiress. On one hand, they had a rocky start and basically disliked each other from the moment they met. But all it took was one moment in time, and from that dislike turned into friendship. And with all the years that they spent with each other, Naruto's feelings had changed about the white-haired beauty. The whisker blonde could easily tell anyone that Winter was a beautiful woman. That was as easy as saying the sky is blue or that you breathe air to live. But he knew that his feelings went just a little deeper than simple friendship. Naruto knew he had romantic feelings for his former teammate. He only found out himself after having a long talk with Kiba about their future. Words were said, and one thing led to another till at a random moment Naruto realized that he had those feelings. But while he was fearless in battle, but confronting his feelings were a different matter. Did it sting hearing that the woman he liked was carrying another man's child? Yes. Did he hate the another man for sleeping with Winter? No. He had all this chance to confess his feelings for his former teammate, but not once did he do anything with them. All he cared about was if Winter was happy, and that whoever the man was he was going to do the right thing for Winter and the child. It was at that moment that his scroll started to ring. Naruto looked down and was surprised to see that it was another one of his former teammates was the one calling him. Yeah, what is it, Rain? Yeah, I have been watching the news. I know nothing on who the father is for Winter child. I see no problem with you coming to visit. I would enjoy seeing you. Okay, see you next week. With that both hung up on one another. The blonde could only shrug his shoulders as to why his former teammate was so hell-bent on getting information on the father of Winter kid. To Naruto, it was none of his business to know who it was. With Winter. All you have to do is abort the bastard child and I will let you keep your rights as the heiress of the Schnee Dust Company. The powerful voice of Witch Schnee, the father of Winter, told his oldest daughter. He was a tall man standing at 6'8", with his short white hair and ice blue eyes. He cast a powerful shadow when he stood as he was not a weak man. He had the strength to back up his words and had trained in the basics of the hunter lifestyle. But there was only a few that would willing oppose him. His daughter was one of them. While he was normally happy that she never backed down, he was not. He was not happy. His company's stock falling in the stock market was another reason. The media finding out and releasing the information was another cause. And lastly, Winter not following his orders. He allowed Winter to become a huntress. Even though he felt that she would get bored of that life and settle for a desk job when she became older. He allowed Winter to enter Beacon Academy only for the fact that it made his company look better in the public opinion. He allowed Winter to finish all 4 years in Beacon, even though it was against his wishes. He allowed Winter to have the freedom that he gave her since she was a young girl, but now he regretted that he didn't put his foot down sooner. Look at the mess she made with all the freedom he gave her. But if she was going to refuse to listen to reason and look out for the company now, then he was going to have to put his foot down. Drastic measures were now going to have to be taken now. If she wanted to keep the baby, fine. But in return to allowing her to keep the bastard child, her title as heir was going to be stripped from her. If she wanted the Schnee money to help support that fatherless child, then she was going to work for him. All that freedom he gave her will now be reduced. If she wanted something, then she must do something in return. I am not giving up the child, father. She didn't hesitate on answering him. Which he knew that meant she had made up her mind and nothing was going to change that. Well, a part of him always had pride that she never second-guessed herself. At this given moment he hated that about her. You know what this means. This was the last time they were going to have this conversation. After today his offer will no longer be on the table and he will be forced to take action now. His company was losing money due to their silence and that was one thing he was not happy for. Yes, I do, father. Winter looked to the ground. She knew she was being selfish, but everyone was allowed to be selfish. But she also hated herself. All the people she was hurting just for her selfishness. Weiss, Naruto, and even her father. He looked at his oldest daughter for several seconds before turning his back to his daughter and began his walk away from her. When he looked at her he still remembered the small little girl that would do anything in her power to please him. From the good grades to showing off new sword techniques she had learned. But now, he saw failure in front of him. As soon as Wit left the room, Winter let a few tears flow from her eyes. Weiss was going to hate her, she just knew it. Her father found her to be a disappointment with her choices. And she knew that she would never be able to look Naruto in the eyes. She just wanted everything to stop and let her be happy. She wanted to go back to when she and Naruto first started to get along with one another. Not this. But Naruto. The sound of a bedroom mattress squeaking with heavy pants, grunts and moans were ringing throughout the room. The bedroom sheet was laying on the floor as two naked bodies were in the middle of a steamy intimacy. One face could not be seen, but the body was a true definition of beauty. Long flowing white hair that was sticking to the body of the female. The only sound coming from the female with her mouth agape let out a loud moan as she rode the male below her. Leaning down she gave the male a kiss on the cheek as she slowly moved closer to the male ear. "Let it out, give me everything you have," she whispered into his ear. The male could only let out a loud grunt as he wrapped his arm around her slim waist. He gave her a quick kiss on the cheek as his body was on cloud nine. He wanted to look at the beauty in his arms but couldn't make out her face. "Give me everything you have, Naruto." He wanted to say her name, but he couldn't. For whatever reason her name didn't want to come out of his mouth. Ding dong. And just like that, the dream that he kept having since leaving Beacon. He enjoyed the wet dream, but he wanted to know who the female was in his dream. He wanted to know why he kept having the same dream, but at the moment he knew he had to answer the door. He could always his answers another time. Naruto knew who that was at his door. He was only waiting for one person for the past week and was more than happy knowing that Rain was coming to visit him. He had no feelings for his former teammate other than respect. He respected his teammate a great deal. But not once did those feelings go beyond that. And that is what made his friendship with Rain easy. With Winter, there's so many mixed feelings on her that he couldn't figure them out as of right now. Quickly going up to the door he opened the door. "Come on in, Rain." Naruto greeted her as he stepped aside and allowed the female to come into his home. As soon as she stepped into his home she quickly tackled him to the ground with a powerful bear hug. "I missed you, Naru," she said as she used all the strength in her arms to wrap them around the blonde body. Naruto could only smile as he returned the hug and gave her a quick pat on the head. Hours later. "Even you don't know who the father is, Rain?" Naruto asked as he was eating his dinner. Which was ramen, his favorite food and the only food he was willing to eat 24/7 and will never stop eating, even if time stopped or if the world was about to come to an end. But going back to the topic at hand. The blonde had asked his teammate if she knew anything about Winter and anything about the father. By anything he meant anything, he wanted a name or a picture or something, but like everyone in the world she didn't have the information. "Oh, I never said anything that I didn't know about Winter," she answered back as she ate her dinner. Which was a very large bowl of salad. Naruto gave her a light glare and waited for the gossiper to give the information he wanted to know. "What is it for me?" Let it be known, she was not the type to willing give up information unless she was given something in return. Hey, she knew that information was power and you can ask for anything for any bit of information from the right people. "I'm paying for your meal." Naruto gave her a deadpan expression as he answered her back. She shrugged her shoulders and kept her mouth closed. Which the male knew that she was not going to talk. "Okay, what do you want?" It was just easier for him to ask her what she wanted than it was to try and randomly guess on what she wanted. She tapped her chin for a couple of seconds before a grin broke out on her face. "Tell me, what are your feelings for Winter?" It was a simple requested and an easy way to find out the answers he wanted, but for Naruto, he still couldn't figure out his own feelings for the whited-haired beauty. "I'm waiting, Naruto." She had stopped eating and was now waiting to hear his response. "I don't know." Naruto looked at the ceiling and tried to figure out his thoughts on. If Rain was asking for this kind of information, then she knew who Winter had sex with and who the father was for the baby. "It's very simple question, Naruto." "I like Winter." Now it felt like a great weight was lifted off his chest. "I'm mad that she found someone. I'm angry that the same person not only had sex with Winter, but now gets the chance to have a family with her. And lastly, I'm mad at myself. I had all the chances to tell her my feelings, but I blew it. I had an amazing woman in my life and I just let her slip through my fingers. And now I have lost my chance with her." Naruto poured his feelings out now that he was being forced to face them. While he was relieved that someone made him say what he wanted to say for so long, it felt pointless for the blonde since Winter was about to start a new life with someone else. There was nothing left that he could do. He didn't want to ruin Winter's chance at happiness and because of that he was going to let her go and have her happy ending. But Rain was happy. Now she knew that the two biggest idiots on her team were both after each other but didn't think they were good enough for one another. Now how was going to tell them both in her most gentle way possible? Oh yes, that should work, as a thought came into her mind. Why don't you just tell her about your feelings? Haven't you been listening? It's not going to happen. She is off about to have a kid and I am stuck here with a broken heart. Naruto was slightly angry that Rain was able to brush off his confession so easily and just tell him to go up to Winter and let her know his feelings. She is going to run off with her prince in shiny armor and have a happy little family I am not going to ruin. But you are the father, Naruto. Dance. With that simple sentence a hush of silence went between the two. Rain didn't want to say anything as the words slowly sink into his skull. And for the blonde, the words that came out of his teammate mouth kept repeating in his mind. You're the father, you're the father, are the father, father. What? Naruto grabbed her by her shoulders and shook her. He felt that this was some cruel joke that she was playing on him. She was known to be cruel to those that had anger her. But she wasn't known to be cruel to those she cared for. His heart was beating 1,000 miles. You're the father too, Winter chided Naruto. Naruto loosened his grip on her and took a seat. He still couldn't believe the words that came out of her mouth. He couldn't make head or tails on the new information. The graduation dance, you got too drunk to remember, but you slept with Winter. She didn't want you to know. But I slept with her. That some orphan kid is the father to the Shiniera's unborn child. Naruto snapped back. His head was a storm of emotions. He also felt hurt that Winter didn't tell him he was the father. He always dreamed that he would have a family someday and now he was being told he had a child on the way and the woman was keeping him in the dark. She didn't want anyone to know cause she didn't want to drag your name down into the mud because of her family history. I don't care about that. She does all her life. She was raised to put her family name before her own emotions or actions. Everything she did and was taught was to always put the Shini name above all else. But in act of defiance she let herself loose and is now in a tough situation as she put someone else above her family. What should I do? Naruto was at a lose of words. He couldn't believe that Winter was trying everything that she could to save him from the world. And here he was cursing her name just a few seconds ago. That is something only you know what to do. But Winter, days later. Winter sighed as she looked out the window. Dress in the night groaned for her beauty sleep. The night sky just seemed so beautiful in Winter mind. The night time seemed to be the only time she was given any peace from the chaos from her life at the moment. Everyone just couldn't leave her alone and try to figure out her thoughts about the baby situation. For her it seemed like everyone wanted her to give them an answer when she didn't want to even have time to figure out herself. The night was the time where everyone slept and allowed her the peace she needed. Beautiful night, huh? A voice said behind Winter, making her jump out of her bed with her heart pumping 1,000 beats. She turned around to see who had sneak up on her. Her eyes widened as she saw the one person who she thought she would never see again. Nah, Naruto. She shuddered out as she couldn't believe that the father of her child was in front of her with his weapon drawn. Now that she actually had a good chance to look at him, she wondered why his weapon was drawn. How did you get in here? I walked in through the front door. Naruto answered her with a matter-of-fact tone in his voice as he told her. Winter eyes widened. How could he be so careless? Didn't he know that he would be shot on sight for coming into the mansion? But the guards. They're all taking a nap. Winter ran past him and checked out her bedroom door. And to her chagrin she saw all the guards on active duty knocked her. How did she not notice a battle going on outside her door? Wait, how was he able to enter without anyone noticing? She did the only thing that she could think of. Smack. Ow. Naruto rubbed the top of his head as a large lump formed on his head. He couldn't believe that Winter just smacked him out of the blue. Didn't he know how hard it was to knock out all the guards without anyone being alerting? Your phantom slap still as deadly as always. Naruto could only smile. Yes, that slap had hurt him, but she only did that to show that she cared. Why did you come here? Winter panicked as she didn't want the blonde to get into trouble for his foolish actions. Don't get her wrong, she was happy that Naruto came to visit her, even if it was in the middle of the night, but couldn't he just do it like a normal person? You know why I came here? Winter heart thumped wildly. Was this a dream? If it was, hopefully no one came to awaken her before it got to the juicy part. You still owe me 5 lien from 3 months ago. Winter face palm. She couldn't believe that he came to her house to only collect the money she owed him. She had the urge once again. Her hand was slowly raising up. The twitch was forming on her forehead. I am here to talk to you about my kid. Winter's arm fell to the side and her eyes widened once again. All the wind left her body. No, this had to be a bad dream. How did he find out? She knew there was no one he knew that knew he was the father. She opened her mouth to say anything to try and deny his accusation. Rain told me. That explained it. On the morning after she had slept with the blonde, Rain had walked into the dorm room. With Winter still naked wrapped around Naruto's arm. It didn't take long for Rain to figure out what they'd done. Nor did it take long for Rain to contact her to ask if Naruto was the father. All of which she couldn't deny. She backed away from the blonde. She didn't want to deal with him, nor did she feel this was the time for Naruto to come into the picture. She still had to deal with her father and the media. And he was the last person she wanted to deal with right now. And yet, she also wanted him by her side right now. Nothing but conflicting emotions were raging through her. But she knew there was no way she was going to get out of this conversation with the father of her child. Winter Schnee could only stare at the blonde standing in front of her. She hoped that her heartbeat would slow down or speed up so that she would have a heart attack and avoid this conversation altogether. Anything would be better than having this conversation right now. Fighting an army of Grimm, yelling at a headmaster, hell even fight any Grimm butt naked all seemed better than talking to the father of her child. The white-haired woman flinched when the golden hair hunter hand extended towards her. Closing her eyes, she waited for his action, but nothing happened. She didn't feel his hand touching her. Opening her eyes, she witnessed his hand reaching for her face and moving some strand hair from her face. She was amazed that he was being very gentle with her. If anything, she was expecting some type of violence towards her. Now that she thought of it, she wanted to smack herself for thinking such a thought. For as long as she known Naruto, he was never the type to resort to violence. He might yell back at someone, he might challenge someone to a duel, even if that was a form of violence, but hey, it was a different type, but he was never the type to strike first. In fact, he hated violence with no cause. He wanted peace, not hatred in the world. That is what he always wanted since they were little. She smiled a small smile. Yes, this was the same blonde she had fallen for. He was being gentle with her even when she was being stubborn towards him. Even when she knew that she didn't deserve his kindness after everything she had done to him, he was still giving her kindness. That is one of many traits that she had admired about Naruto. Before the baby drama, she always pictured her child to have that kindness that Naruto had. Not that she believed she was going to have a kid with Naruto, but here she was going to have his child. There we go. I'm not used to seeing your hair out of place. Naruto joked as he backed away from Winter, surprised that she was afraid of him. But he couldn't exactly blame her for her small fear towards him. He did sneak into her home and just admitted he knew that he was the father of her child. The silence engulfed the two, as neither one knew what to say to one another. Well, they both knew there was much tension between the two, both just couldn't muster the courage of what to say to each other. Winter stood up and walked to her bed and sat down. Without saying a word, she beckoned for him to sit next to her on her bed. Naruto didn't need to be told twice as he quickly went to her side. Are you angry with me? Winter was the one who broke in the silence with a one question that was simple, but also always on her mind since she found out that she was pregnant. Not that she could blame him. She knew if she was in his position she would be downright furious. But then again, this was Naruto she was speaking to. Yeah, I am. Winter heartbeat drop. She felt some tears were coming closer to emerging from the corners of her eyes. I'm mad at you for being stupid. Now Winter's sadness was quickly replaced with anger. How dare he call her stupid? Didn't he know how hard it was for her to simply ask him? Smack. Acting on pure instinct, she had slapped the side of the blonde hunter. That was always her first response to anything that upsets her, anger her, or anything that wasn't pleasant for her. Yes, she knew that she is hot-headed, but damn it, he didn't have to tell her that he was angry with her. Couldn't he just lie to her face instead? That's the Winter I know and love. A grinning Naruto responded back as he lightly rubbed his side. He knew how to push her buttons and how to really get a rise out of her. Winter looked up surprised with his words and quickly gained a twitching eyebrow. She should have known that Naruto was lying to her. That grinning face of his told her everything. This was his way of changing the mood in the room. He would do something that was just plain out stupid in her opinion and cause a stir to change the person mood. It works, but that didn't mean he should use it on her. Even when in this situation called for it. I can't be angry with you, Winter. Naruto wrapped his arms around the whited-haired heiress, bringing her closer to him. Without realizing, she snuggled closer to her former teammate, enjoying the warmth his body was radiating. Winter smiled to herself. This was the very first time he ever heard her, and she could without shred of a doubt say she enjoyed it. But, you have every right to be angry with me. Winter tried to use his shoulder to hide her face from his view. She didn't want him to her expression. She was so close to breaking down and crying. But she wanted to be strong. I lied to you. I hid the truth from you that I was carrying your child. I kept the one thing I know you have always craved for, and that was to have a family. How can you not be angry with me? When did you lie to me? Winter eyes widened. She pushed herself off his shoulder, jumped to her feet and looked at him, wondering why he could be so calm about the situation. Didn't he understand what she was saying? Naruto saw the expression on her face and knew that he was going to have to explain himself. I never asked you if I was the father of your child. And I am sure that you would have told me someday that I was. Winter's eyes couldn't widen far enough. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. He actually believed her enough that someday she was going to tell him. That was just unlogical. I had no plans to ever tell you about the child. Am I such a bad choice on being a father? Naruto was keeping his calm about their conversation. He needed to confirm his suspicions about Winter's actions. Far from it. I am happy that you are the father of my child. Winter had yet to realize that Naruto's poker face had not changed one bit since her outburst started. And for the blonde, he knew that she doesn't always filter her words when she was angry. She just said what was on her mind. Not befitting a heiress, but she was still young. Then why didn't you tell me I was the father? Because, when your legend is told, I don't want it to be tainted that your lover came from a family that has done nothing but belittled and nearly enslaved the Faunus race. I don't want you to be tarnished because of me nor my family. Winter, so close to tears, knew that all it was going to take was one final push to make this tears fall. She never expected the blonde next course of action. Without saying another word, he stood up and wrapped his arm around the beauty. He brought her back down to the bed. Winter didn't know how to react. She didn't push him away. All she could do was let out a silent sob as few tears slowly fell down her cheeks. She was not used to feeling all these types of emotions. She didn't know what to do with herself. Brain was right, Naruto quietly said as he stared at the ceiling, content with just holding Winter in his arms. Knowing this was the point of no return, he had to tell her everything. It was time to get the heavy burden off his chest. She told me that you were doing all this to protect me. That for once you defied your own family. You did all this because of your love for me. Sobbing into his chest, Winter could only faintly nod her head. He was right about everything. She stopped denying it to herself a long time ago that her feelings for Naruto were powerful. Her pride for the Schnee family name was just as powerful. As painful as it was, she was forced to choose between the two. Her love for Naruto was the one that had won. Yes, I love you, Winter choked out, her tears falling down her cheek like a waterfall. Hugging the blonde, she squeezed the Naruto even tighter, enjoying the warmth that came from his body. I love you too, Winter Schnee. There, he finally confessed his feelings for the silver-haired beauty. Winter, left speechless, did the only action that went through her mind. Closing the gap, she pressed her lips on the blonde and kissed him. Naruto's eyes widened for a second before returning the kiss. What felt like eternity, the two slowly broke the kiss to catch their breath. Naruto wiped the tears away from Winter's face before giving her a light kiss on her forehead. This was the moment he knew that would be forever stuck in his mind. All he wanted to do was hold Winter in his arms for all time. Half-hour later. The two rested on Winter's bed. They rarely spoke to one another since the kiss between the two. Both didn't know what there was left to say to one another, but they didn't care. All they wanted to remain in each other's arms, but something had just occurred to Winter. There had yet to be guard to return since Naruto invasion. I wonder how come the guards haven't done their nightly shift changes. Winter wondered out loud, not wanting to dislodge herself from blonde arms. Naruto let out a soft chuckle at Winter's question. I think my buddy has been taking care of all your guards. Naruto answered her. Who is it? Winter questioned him as one of her eyebrows rose. She just wanted to know who helped him invade the Schnee family mansion. There was only a handful of people that could possibly help in that area. Before Naruto could answer her, the door to Winter's room was kicked open. There's no booze here. A male drunken voice lured out, his eyes scanning the room before landing on the couple in the bed. Did I interrupt something? He questioned them, not sure if he walked in on a private moment or not. He didn't want to be a cock blocker, but damn, he wanted his booze. Oh hey Crow. Naruto casually greeted the intruder, used to the man behavior. Winter's eyes widened, not only at the name, but that the man was kicking down the doors to look for booze. You recruited Crow Branwen into helping you invading my home, Winter nearly shouted. She couldn't believe that Naruto would bring him. So I didn't. Crow couldn't read the mode in the room. As he looked at the two and walked towards them. Hey, Ice Princess, can you tell me where all the booze is at? Naruto promised me some great booze from here on helping him out. I thought you were in charge of guard duty. Naruto wondered, as he didn't think that Crow was going to interrupt him. Hell, he thought Crow was going to be busy all night fighting the guards. Guess he was wrong. Well, those were Naruto thoughts. Winter on the other hand had different thoughts going through her mind. They're all sleeping right now, but I still can't find the booze. Winter's forehead gained a tick mark. She wanted to punish the two for their actions. She had to punish them. Her hand was gaining the itch to slap the two across their heads. But wait. Winter wasn't the only person living here. Where was Weiss in all this chaos? Did you hurt my sister? Winter wanted to know the current status of her younger sister. While she wanted to punish the two, she needed to ensure that her sister was safe. Crow leaned his head in to gain a better look at Winter. After a couple seconds he pulled away from Winter's personal space. There's a mini you? Crow questioned as he tipped his finger to his chin. Winter's angry tick mark returned in full force. Her hand was slowly pulling back ready for the strike to come. Is this her? Crow brought out a small white-haired girl from behind the door to the room. A small white-themed girl that was not only wrapped in rope but also had duct tape over her mouth. If looks could kill, Crow would be 6 feet under and being burned while his body was lowered to the ground. Weiss. Winter shot up, going towards her younger sister. Her safety was now the only thought going through her mind, but as she was about to reach for the young Schnee, Weiss was pulled from her reach. SSSHHHH, Crow calmly told her as he placed his fingers on her lips, trying to calm down Winter. There's a little kid trying to sleep. Crow was trying to be the voice of reason and silence Winter. But that one sentence caused to only anger Winter even further. Couldn't he see that he had awoken Weiss when he had kidnapped her? Not her. She's already awake because of your actions. Winter screamed at him. Crow turned his head to the younger Schnee and saw that she was indeed awake and glaring at him with a burning passion. Oh, she is awake. Crow shrugged his shoulders, surprised at his small mistake. Why you? Crow, Winter and Crow both turned their heads to notice that Naruto was starting to get out of the bed. A large grin on his face as he saw the way the two acted towards one another. Why don't you have Weiss show you where the fancy booze is at? Crow eyes lit up at his suggestion. Hey Snowflake, do you know where the booze is at? Crow asked Weiss as he brought her up to his eye level. She glared at him, but slowly nodded her head. She knew where the wine was at. Then lead the way. Crow brought her down to her feet and cut off the rope tied around her body. The moment she was free, her mind told her to run away from the crazy man, but she knew that no matter what he could catch her no matter what. With no other choice she led the male hunter down the hall. Just as Crow was about to walk out the door, he turned around to address the couple. You got yourself a good woman there, Naruto. Don't mess it up. He turned his attention back to the young Schnee. His comment made the two turn a bright red. Hey Snowflake, I have 2 nieces that are about your age. Maybe. Crow voice slowly faded away as he walked away from the room. They did hear a loud shout aimed towards Crow but nothing after. Now that he is gone we can really talk, Winter. The Schnee was still trying to make head and tails on what had just happened. But she understood that she was being talked to. Turning her attention towards the blonde, she wondered what was left to say. Winter, there is no other way of saying it, but I want to be with you. I want to be with you even if you weren't having my child. I love you, Winter Schnee. Naruto knew this wasn't the first time he told her, but it just kept rolling off the tongue. It felt nice for the blonde. But what about? Stop caring about what everyone else is thinking about us. Just be with me, Winter. Naruto wrapped his arms around the white-haired beauty. Yes, she realized that it was time to stop caring about others' opinions. I will, Winter gingerly wrapped her arms around the blonde. Now I will stop caring about what others think and only focus on this relationship. Naruto smiled. A true happy-filled smile formed on his face. This was what he wanted. I love you, Naruto Uzumaki. Truly, this is what he always wanted. Now there only left one more obstacle in his way. For the two to finally be free from everyone and be together, they still had to face Winter father, Witch Schnee. Time skip with Witch Schnee. Witch Schnee was normally proud man. There was nothing that got by him or that could surprise him in the business world. His personal life was another matter, as his daughter's sudden pregnancy was something that just plain out surprised him. But right now he was just confused. Why was he confused? Was because of the messages he was receiving for the past hours from his younger daughter, Weiss. They range from confusing to odd and plain out strange. He couldn't make sense as to what was happening at his home. Those texts read. Save me. I have been tied up and being questioned as to where the booze is at. Father. A strange man is trying to set up a play date with his nieces. P.S. I'm too old for play dates. Winter is in her bedroom with some blonde male while I was being told to show a weird guy where the booze was at. Come home. Come home. Come home. And all of those texts came from Weiss in the past few hours. But he wasn't sure as to why his security had yet to inform him if his family was in danger or not. All of his calls were being answered and they all gave him the same answer. His daughters were safe and sound. At the second his phone went off, informing him that he just received a message. Opening his scroll he received was from Winter. Come home, father, I am willing to talk about my pregnancy with you now. Wit blinked. He was more than surprised his daughter was finally willing to talk about her pregnancy and what they should do. Since the discovering of her pregnancy she had all but kept him from discussing about her pregnancy. He was sure that she was doing everything in her power to stay away from discussing about what she had planned to do when she had the child. Without giving it a second thought he rushed back home. The following morning. Wit wasn't sure of what he was going to expected when he arrived to his home. Peace and calm, with a slight hint of business being done, was the normal occurrence of what he was used to. But not this. None of his guards were in their guard stations, nor was any of his maids and butlers. No, it was just quiet all around his mansion. No one to greet his arrival, nor any sight of his 2 children. Just an empty home. No responses from his messages from either one of his daughters. With a great sense of caution he searched around his home for any sign of his family. No one in the main living room, nor was there anyone in the kitchen. After checking a few other rooms he still had yet to see any sign of his daughters. Now he was growing more concerned, but he decided to check their rooms. First checking Weiss' room he found nothing in her room. She was not in her room, nor was there any sign of where she might have gone. Whit frowned, but decided to check Winter room. Maybe they were both in her room, as Weiss sometimes slept in Winter room. Walking towards Winter room, he reached her room in matter of seconds and entered her room. Just like before there was no one in the room. But there was a note on her bed. Grabbing the note off her bed he checked to see what it said. To your personal studies. Winter. P.S. Weiss is safe. She is in the city doing shopping. The great sense of relief overcame Whit. Now knowing that his daughters were both safe was great to hear. But now he was wondering as to why Winter wanted to talk in his personal studies. In mere moments he reached his personal studies and walked straight into his room. Sitting on one of the sofas was his daughter Winter, while the unknown person was sitting in his chair. Winter was the first one to acknowledge Whit Schnee. Quickly standing up to greet her father, she gave him a quick hug before sitting back down. But even after greeting him the two males had yet to utter a word to one another. Naruto had stood up and looked at Whit. Winter seeing that the two were staring each other down, trying to show each other who was the superior one in the room. Father, this is Naruto Uzumaki. He is the father of my child. Whit stopped his staring contest with Winter to look back and forth between the two. This wild boy, yes a boy in his mind was the father. Nothing about this blonde-haired male standing in front of him was sitting well with him. He would give Naruto credit for not backing down from meeting with him, one of the most powerful person in the world due to his dust company, but that is all that he was giving him praise for. Is that so? Whit was still waiting for the boy to prove him wrong. When you're the owner of one of the most powerful dust companies in the world, you become used to people bowing to you. Males from wealthy families bending backwards all to enter his empire and all for him to turn them down. He needed someone that wouldn't bend to his will, he needed someone that would take the Schnee name to higher levels. And looking at the person in front of him he had yet to be impressed. Yes father. He was part of the same time as I while I attended Beacon and he ranked among the top 3 in his year. From what Whit was hearing, he was hearing a sales pitch. Like his daughter was trying to say that he was okay to date his daughter. And yet he had yet to hear anything come from the boy mouth. Winter. The beautiful mother-to-be stopped talking and looked at Naruto. She was wondering what he wanted to say to her. Let me do the talking. Winter was confused. This was her father, unless he knew how to speak business he wouldn't be able to impress him. But. Trust me, Winter, I have this. Winter stopped talking as she stared at Naruto. Giving her a smile, Winter knew that it was his way of saying that she had nothing to worry about. Returning the smile, she sat back down on the sofa to watch their confrontation. Mr. Schnee, I will answer the first question that flashed through your mind when you first saw me. I am not a faunus. I'm 100% human. While race didn't matter to the blonde, he knew the history of Whit Schnee and the faunus. Whit let out a small sigh of relief, that was a plus, knowing that his daughter didn't get knocked up by an animal. At least you're not a savage. Naruto frowned at his comment. He was friends with many faunus, but that was just plain out rude. I'm going to get straight to the point Mr. Schnee, I want to marry your daughter. Now that surprised Whit, he didn't believe that the male would be so straightforward. But he still believed that his child was good for Winter. And what can you offer my daughter that I can't? Whit was ready to tear this boy down. He was going to make Naruto feel like he was nothing and force him to leave his family alone. If you're talking about money then you have me beat as you can afford to buy her everything that I can't, but I can offer her so much more. Naruto spoke calmly, knowing that he can't have his emotions get the best of him. And that is? Love. A cheesy line, but he was speaking from his heart. Judging from the expression of Whit, he was not pleased with Naruto's answer. But for the blonde a grin formed on his face. Just seeing that expression of rage made the blonde know he was going to win. And for Winter, she knew that Naruto just got under the skin of her father. If love is the only thing that you can offer my daughter then you already fail as a father-to-be. Whit voice raised as a glare shot towards the blonde. Love does not provide a roof over your child head, nor does it feed your family. If you believe that was the way to win this argument then you are. I can provide for my family. That stopped Whit Schnee in his track. Being interrupted in mid-rant only angered him, but he knew that he had to let at least hear him out. When my parents passed away they left a trust fund for me. And you believe that whatever small trust fund that was left for you would be able to provide for your family. Well it's not like it can buy a large dust empire like yours, but it's in the 100,000 lean range. That surprised both the Schnee. While Winter knew that Naruto's parents had passed away when he was young, she never knew about the trust fund. She always assumed that he had a relative that was paying for his fees. And for Whit Schnee, he was more surprised that the kid in front of him didn't need his money. I don't need your money, Mr. Schnee. Naruto figured that the white-haired male assumed he was hearing to take money from him and not here for his daughter. And what of your career as a huntsman? Wit knew for many hunters a family can stop their plans. For most young hunters a family at such a young age means that they could not take on some of the more high-profile missions. Missions that would gain them fame or fortune. Family comes first for me. Well, I was given a recommendation to join the elite force known as the Hunters of the Wild. I will have to put that on hold and focus more on my family. And once again another new bomb was dropped on both of the Schnee. The Hunters of the Wild are an elite force of hunters that serve no kingdom. Their main priority was to protect all of humanity by any means. They would hunt down any hunter that has fallen into kingdom and bring them to justice. And most of the high-profile missions were given to them if it required a group. To be offered a spot into their force proves that the person is best of the best. Even knowing that you are a skilled hunter, that still doesn't mean that I approve of you. Naruto let out a small chuckle. He knew it was time to end this fight. Mr. Schnee, we can argue about this all day and night. You can throw me out and think you win, but if you do then I can end up ruining your empire. With eyes widen and his glare quickly intensify. How dare this brat tell him he could ruin his empire? Explain. It's very simple, I will take this battle into court. That won't shove anything. Wit was harsh with his comeback. Yes it will. The media would have a field day with our battle in court. They might even paint the Schnee Dust Company as a monster as they refuse to allow father any contact with his child. Not only that, all your stock would fall as our battle goes on, and people that have invested large sums of money would withdraw from your company as they don't want to be associated with a company that refuse hunters their rights to see their children. With eyes widen. His mind playing out the scenario. His company would be ruined. People would paint out the company to truly be monsters. He was at a loss of words. We can avoid all this. Naruto placed his hand on Wit's shoulder. I don't want your money. I don't want a place in your company. All I want is to be allowed to marry Winter and see my child. It was simple enough. I don't approve of your tactics. Wit said through gritted teeth. He knew when he was bested. Well, he still might not enjoy the idea that Winter was going to be with this man, yes, a man now in his book. He knew that she was going to be in safe hands. And all I'm asking is that you be a part of our lives. Naruto gave him a pat on his shoulder as he walked towards Winter. As soon as he reached her, he wrapped his arms around her and brought her for a tight hug. Be a part of your grandchild life. Winter told him as a bright smile formed on her face. She knew that finally she could be with the man she loved for so long. Wit didn't say a word as he slowly nodded his head, too proud to admit defeat out loud. Months later. Can I see her? Can I see her? A young voice cried out as she ran into a white room. All she received was a large SHH from everyone inside. In front of the young child was a mature woman that had a baby wrapped in a pink blanket resting in her arms. A gold wedding ring proudly shine in the sun glow. Weiss, keep your voice down and you can see her. The mature woman told the young child. The young lady happily nodded her head as she scooted close to the woman. She's so tiny, Winter. She told the mature lady as she looked at the features of the small bundle of joy in her arms. The newly born baby had light blonde hair, and for the moment that the baby had opened her eyes, they were the same shade of blue as her mother. But had her father's skin tone. Well, she was born just hours ago, Weiss. The young lady in question turned to the source and saw that it was her brother-in-law, Naruto Uzumaki. While at first not approving of who her sister was going to marry, she could admit that he had grown on her. He was a fine husband for her sister to have. Sorry father couldn't be here. Weiss said, a frown gracing her face. It's fine. Winter told her younger sister as she happily held her newborn daughter in her arms. While sad that own father couldn't make it as he was away on business, she understood why he couldn't make it. She couldn't be any happier than now. She gotten married to the man of her dreams, just had her child, and finally the new chapter of her life was about to begin. What else could she ask for? What is her name? Weiss asked as she wanted to know what to call her niece. Both parents smiled at her question. Well, many names had come to mind. The one that had one was because of one reason. Her name is Aurora Uzumaki. We name her Dawn because she is the dawn of a new chapter in her lives. Naruto told his sister-in-law. Everyone smiled as they took pictures of the newly added member of their family. The end. Thanks for watching, also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.